Yo, what's going on, you guys? It's your boy Ben Mahari here, representing Mahari Nation Sports Podcast. Much love to the entire LDBC and the basketball community. You understand what I'm saying? We also don't miss basketball conversations every Friday night, 9 p.m. Central Time, is where we discuss basketball-related topics, news, and even debates right here on the channel too. And tomorrow, we might have debate night with other brothers here that's going to discuss about the documentary or everything else in the world of basketball. You understand what I'm saying? So stay tuned for that. And also, we're at 658 subscribers. We're going on strong there, you guys. So thank you for all your contributions and thank you for spreading the word about the channel, though, too. We growing and we making moves out here. All right. So for all the new people that is coming into the channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon to get all the latest notifications when I start dropping videos and live streams. All right. With all the pleasantries out the way, let's get down to business here, shall we? Let's consider this part two of the Scottie Pippen portrayal of the documentary here, because I dropped a quickie one last night. But today, let's go talk more in depth about what's been going on. All right. So what's been kind of going on is Scottie Pippen's been beyond livid. According to reports, he's beyond furious about his portrayal in the documentary and pretty much upset with Michael Jordan and how he perceived Scottie Pippen, during the documentary, calling him selfish, being unreasonable, for taking his surgery late, during the off season. Okay. And there's been a lot of cases of, Scottie Pippen, making selfish decisions, for himself and about the team. And Michael Jordan pretty much basically expressed his criticism of that. All right. And so I just wanted to also give you a little bit more in depth about what's going on here. Scottie Pippen, to me, is one of the greatest is one of the greatest small forwards in the game. You understand what I'm saying? For his ability to defend, play defense, strip you of your shorts when playing recklessly with the ball. You know what I mean? One of the best dunkers in the game. You know what I mean? And pretty much a guy that can get you a guaranteed 17 points per night on a given night. Okay. Now, with that being said, all right, I am kind of disappointed of how Scottie Pippen is taking this. All right. And to be honest with you, I don't understand why Pippen is feeling the way that he feels. Now, I do understand about being called selfish and being called, weak minded, soft, or things of that sort. Because to me, I never thought that Pippen was originally soft to begin with, but he never had the mentality to help take over a game or help lead your team to a championship. You know what I mean? Because without Michael Jordan and his influence, I don't think Scottie Pippen would have been a Hall of Famer. I don't think not. I think he would still have been a really relatively good player that would have maybe made one All-Star appearance. But to have the career that he had, Michael had to really push his buttons and get him to committed to, working hard in the offseason to help prepare, for the tough battles in the playoffs. And it was case in point with the Detroit Pistons. Now, Michael was kind of critical in the documentary about the migraine, game against the Pistons in 1990. Michael pretty much said like he had a migraine. I can't question that, or I can't speak against that. If he had a migraine, he had a migraine. I'm just kind of paraphrasing what Michael's saying. And that case right there, I think that, it's just one of those cases where, maybe the pressure of the moment was too much for Pippen to deal with, or maybe just the abuse that he was taking was just too unbearable for him to take. Whatever the reason was, he did not play particularly well. He shot like 1 of 10 in that game. And if he would have scored at least 17 points in that game, I think the Bulls would have beaten the Pistons and got to the NBA Finals. You know what I mean? And finally beat the bad boys rather than just win a year later. And then pretty much, the Bulls were at their peak and the Pistons were pretty much on the downside. You know what I mean? In terms of injuries, but not in terms of age. All right. If you want to check out the video about what I did about the bad boys, is in the archives of my channel. Go check it out. Now, that's number one. Number two, and this is where a lot of people have had a lot of, slightness against Scottie Pippen. And that is when he decided to sit down during a playoff game against the New York Knicks when the score was tied. Okay. Now, Phil Jackson drew up a play for Tony Kukoc to take the game-winning shot. Pippen wanted to take the game-winning shot, but it wasn't being drawn up for him. And Pippen was furious about that and pretty much refused to check into the game. All right. And Phil Jackson said, all right, the hell with this guy. Pete Myers, you take the ball inbounds. All right. And the worst part was Kukoc made the game winner. Now, there's a lot more psychology about that than people tend to realize. Okay. Krause was basically promoting this guy as the next face of the franchise or whatever. You know, I mean, when he saw him playing professional ball in Europe, and during the '92 Olympic Games, Jordan and Pippen took their turns, basically guarding him and basically picking him apart. You know what I mean? And had one of the worst games of his career. I'm talking about Tony Kukoc. But I give Kukoc credit for coming back in the gold medal game and pretty much earning the respect of both Pippen and Jordan in that certain extent. Now, Michael did admit, like, listen, I love Kukoc, but by the way he was presented to me and Pippen, it was basically an insult. You know what I mean? And they saw Kukoc as more of a figurehead of Jerry Krause in a sense. Okay, now because of the fact that Kukoc was getting more money than Pippen, Pippen felt like, listen, y'all doing this because he's your main guy and I'm not. And I felt a little bit, bad for Pippen to a certain extent, but still, you should have played in the game. You should have done your job, you know what I mean, and be the leader. And you failed that way. And the fact that your teammates looked at you like, you let us down, though, man, and it was not in your character, because Steve Kerr even admitted that it was not in his character for Pippen to react that way. And Bill Cartwright looked at you like, you let us down, Pippen. You let us down, even though they won the game. You know what I mean? And Pippen realized he made a mistake. But what really rubbed me off very badly on Pippen is when he talked about in the documentary when he said, if I had a chance to do it over again, I would have done the same thing. I basically reclined to the fact that he had no regrets of what he did, and he would do it again. Like, that right there really drew me off very, very badly about Pippen, because, bro, I understand like how you felt at that time. You were basically a young player at that time. Now you're the leader of the team, and pretty much you have to lead the way. You know what I mean? You were put in that position because Michael Jordan retired, because he was just pretty much exhausted and had to went through the ordeal about his father's death. But at the same time, you should have done your job as being the team leader and being a better man about this, but you chose about yourself than about the team. You know what I mean? And the fact that you decided to, say, "Oh, I don't regret this at all." Like, listen, how are people going to look at Pippen very differently? How are they going to look at him now? Because listen, I knew most of this stuff about Pippen before the documentary even aired. All right, and I had the feeling that they were going to bring this up, and I'm not surprised of how people are looking at this, because it just proves my point that Pippen is a very selfish player. All right, not a selfish human, maybe not a selfish human being per se, but in terms of being a selfish player in the locker room, because he wanted to be the guy and he wanted to be out of the shadow of Michael Jordan. But unfortunately, without the influence of Jordan, you wouldn't be the player that you became, and you wouldn't be a Hall of Famer. I'm very much serious about that. You know what I mean? And I'm very, very disappointed of how Pippen is taking this. And then third of all, and this is the most important of all, the contract situation. Pippen signed a 7-year, $18 million deal in 1991, basically making at least $2.5 million per year, around that. Okay, and so when we're talking about how Pippen really got grossly underpaid, of course, no doubt about it, he got grossly underpaid, and the Bulls should have done a better job of maybe negotiating your Pippen's deal and maybe getting a little bit more money out of it. But last time I checked, Jerry Reinsdorf pretty much admitted in the documentary, like, if I were you, I wouldn't sign this contract. You know what I mean? And I remember Jerry Krause said in the top 5 reasons you can't blame my documentary on ESPN Classic back in the mid 2000s. He even pretty much said, like, Pippen, don't sign this contract. It's going to be null and void, and it's going to be demarket your value. But Pippen pretty much said, listen, I need the security. I need the deal, because I want to be able to provide for my family. Now, I felt bad for Pippen to a certain extent, because he had to help two people in his family that were basically handicapped. All right, just like I said last night. But the fact of the matter is that Jerry Reinsdorf didn't put a gun to your head and make you sign the deal. Michael Jordan was basically supporting you and try to get you the money that you deserve. But Reinsdorf pretty much said, once you sign the contract, don't come back to me and try to renegotiate your contract. And Krause was following the orders of what Reinsdorf said. You understand what I'm saying? And I don't understand why Pippen feels the way he feels now, because all of this reflects about yourself. Michael was pretty much explaining about what was going on at the time. You know what I mean? And I just feel like Pippen is not really understanding that he did this to himself. If he had a chance to do it over again, here's how if I were Pippen, here's how I would have done it. All right. Let me drink some water here before I start explaining this. Okay, if I were Pippen at this particular point, if when he was becoming a free agent, here's how I would have done it. Okay, I would have declined the deal, and I would say, listen, I'll accept a 1 year deal worth $20 million. Okay, you're gonna give me 1 year, $20 million. I'm gonna outperform that deal, and then afterwards, you're gonna give me a huge, lucrative contract. All right, with big time money. And if the Bulls were not willing to give you that, walk away as a free agent and go to another franchise that was going to get you the money that you feel that you deserve. You understand what I'm saying? Instead of signing that horrible deal and then waiting until you were a free agent in 1998 and did the sign and trade deal with the Houston Rockets, in which basically you got your money by that time. But by that time, he was already an agent player and he was already declining in terms of his skills and health. All right. And the fact that Pippen decided to take his surgery during the summer of 97, when you knew you were supposed to take your surgery in the beginning of the summer, rehabbing it and getting ready for the new year, listen, how are people going to look at this? All right. People are going to look at this like you were acting very, very selfish and you thought about yourself than about the team. You know what I mean? And that's how I saw it during that time. And I still do today. All right. So I didn't need the documentary to pretty much prove that point because I already knew about it. I already knew that Pippen made the selfish decision to try to play hardball against the management. But at the end of the day, all the lashing out against the Kraus and against the Bulls organization was not going to do anything to realize the fact that Pippen signed a horrible deal. That's just the facts of the matter. And another thing though too, Michael signed what was it, a 7 year, $33 million deal in 1988. Okay, when that original deal expired in the summer of 96. All right, here's what Michael did. All right, Michael Jordan had a contract offer to the New York Knicks right on the table. All right, it was going to be for at least $25 million. All right, he's going to be paid 1 year, $25 million. All right, so you know uh what did David Falk, his agent, did? What did he do? All right. So here's what he did. All right. He called up Reinsdorf and pretty much said, "Listen, Michael's got this huge offer by the New York Knicks to sign. All right. So you got at least you got 1 to 2 hours to sign to give us a huge max deal, or we're basically walking out. All right. You get what I'm saying? And guess what Reinsdorf did? You know what Reinsdorf did? He gave in because he knew if he let Michael Jordan walk to the New York Knicks, it was going to rub off everybody in Chicago very, very badly. You understand what I'm saying? And Michael signed a 1 year, $30 million deal, which was basically his market value as a basketball player. That's how you do business. You force management their hand and give you the money that you truly deserve. All right? Because if Ryan Stewart was not going to give you that money, all right, if he wasn't going to match the offer or succeed that original offer from the Knicks, all right, Michael was going to New York. And can you imagine Bulls fans seeing Michael Jordan wearing a New York Knicks uniform? You know what I mean? I know if you're a New York Knicks fan, you would have dreamed at that. Seeing Michael Jordan and Patrick Ewing play together in Madison Square Garden, that would have been a dream for the Knicks fans. But as a Bulls fan, that would have been a huge insult to the amount of years that I've cheered for the Bulls. All right. And I know a lot of the fans would have resented Reinsdorf and Krause for letting Michael Jordan walk. And that would have began the huge destruction of the Bulls. All right. And listen, another side note, too. Reinsdorf even pretty much said that he was angry that he had to give Michael Jordan that kind of deal. All right. Listen, at the end of the day, though, Reinsdorf, you knew that you had to give that deal to Michael Jordan because you were basically underpaying both Jordan and Pippen all those years. All right. And Michael was just smart enough to force your hand and give you the money that you deserve. That's just the facts of the matter. But what I'm using that analogy is that Pippen had opportunities to really force management's hand in 1991. But he didn't do that. He signed a safer deal and got very much underpaid in the process. So if anyone should be mad about, you should be more mad about at Reinsdorf for basically giving you a bad deal, but more mad at yourself for not playing hardball and giving you a much bigger deal. All right, because they were willing to give you a bigger deal because they knew how important you were when you were winning championships. Everybody knew this, but at the same time, you want to sit here and get mad at Michael Jordan for what he said when initially Pippen has to look himself in the mirror and realize that he did this to himself. Nobody did this to him. Nobody made him do anything in terms of his money. He did this to himself. And the fact that and the fact that he was berating crowds and basically was on trade rumors nonstop. Because I remember in '95, there was a rumor that was going on that the Bulls were going to trade Pippen to the Phoenix Suns for one of Jerry Krause's favorite players, Dan Marley. All right. And then in the 97-98 season, there was a rumor going on that the Bulls were willing to trade Scottie Pippen to the Raptors for a young Tracy McGrady. Now, if that deal would have happened, it would have been very, very interesting of how Michael Jordan would have incorporated a young Tracy McGrady. You know what I mean? And I think Tracy McGrady would have done wonders for Michael Jordan. But I don't know if Michael was willing to, mentor a young player at that particular point in his career. But that's up for debate. The point is, Pippen did all this to himself. Nobody made him do anything. And the fact that he's running around here getting angry at how he's being portrayed in the documentary, listen, that's how you were at that time. How are they going to betray you either other way? Of course they're going to respect what you were able to do throughout your career and how important you were as a player. And you have 2 Olympic gold medals, all right? And you were basically a 6-time champion, all right? Multi-time first-team all-league defender. You understand what I'm saying? And a 7-time all-star. You were getting respect all over the board, all right? People who watch basketball like me understood how talented Pippen was at that time. But the fact of the matter is this. Pippen made very selfish financial decisions that pretty much bit him in the ass in terms of his legacy. And when he left Chicago and got traded to Houston, he did no better either because he was only averaging 14 points per game in a system where, with Rudy Tomjanovich, that the ball was going to be primarily to go to the big people of Akeem Olajuwon and Charles Barkley. And Pippen could not adjust to that. And when he got traded to the Portland Trail Blazers, all right, I remember there were times in that series against the Lakers where he wouldn't even score, all right, and had to really score when they were facing elimination. But the big key point is this. The 15-point lead that they blew against Shaq and Kobe and the Lakers in Game 7 when they were only 12 minutes away from getting to the NBA Finals. If they would have at least made some buckets in that Game 7 in 2000, I believe that the Blazers would have won the championship, beaten Indiana, and Pippen would have had a championship that basically validated him as a player. And now, because of what you did in Portland and how you blew a huge margin against the Lakers, it's really rubbing off to the fact that Scottie Pippen couldn't get off the shadow of Michael Jordan. That's just how it is. You know what I mean? And I don't feel bad at Pippen to an extent, because here's the thing. I don't feel bad for Pippen at all because he made those decisions. He was a grown man at that time. You should have known what you were getting yourself into when you signed that contract. At the same time, part of me feels a little bit bad because he should have been getting the money that he deserved. And I agree with that. And Michael definitely agreed with that. And Michael was doing his best to try to get management to pay you that money. But at the end of the day, Ron Stork played hardball when in terms of his deals. So if you want to get a big money deal, you had to get it when you were either when you're a free agent or when your original contract expires. You understand what I'm saying? And it's just ridiculous of how Pippen is taking this. I should say it's being ridiculous how now Pippen is not now. Even there's reports that now Pippen may never speak to Michael Jordan again after the things that Michael Jordan said in the documentary. I mean, what was Michael Jordan supposed to say? All right, what was he supposed to say about that situation? Was he going to try to lie and try to cover things up? Because all they had to do is just read through the archives of old articles, like I always do, and always look up the information what there was at the time. You get what I'm saying? And so my conclusion to the whole thing is this. And if you don't like what I'm telling you, too bad, because I tell the truth around here. All right. Pippen was a great player. I will never dismiss that at all. As a Bulls fan, I love Pippen. But I'm saying to you is this. Pippen did all these decisions to himself. And I'm going to keep telling you this until it rings through to people's heads. Pippen made that decision to sign that horrible contract. Pippen made the decision of sitting on the bench against the Knicks in the 1994 playoffs. Pippen couldn't even get through a full game dealing with that migraine. And more importantly, Pippen was going to check himself out of the game during the 1998 NBA Finals. All right, in Game 6 with that bad back, he was basically going to say, "I can't do it because his back was too injured for him to deal with." All right. So the bottom line is this: at the end of the day, everything that Pippen has done, he's did it to himself. And I don't feel sorry for Pippen at all because he's a grown man and knew what he's getting himself into. All right. And the thing is this: you can get mad at Michael Jordan until the end until the cows come home. But the conclusion to the whole situation is this: Pippen made all these decisions. Michael didn't do it. Reinsdorf and Krause didn't make you take that contract. You chose to take that contract. And it was not like you weren't going to get any endorsement deals anyway, because people weren't revering to you at that level. That's just the facts of the matter. There's levels to this thing. Michael was just far superior than Scottie Pippen in all aspects. That's just how it is. All right. So that's just pretty much my detailed explanation of this. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section.